The social media in the 21st century has become the platform that's created that engagement and interaction for people. When you think about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, and even LinkedIn, you see that there's a great connect for people to share ideas, to explore opportunities, and also to transform landscapes. To see how social media has really transformed the global space is something that one needs to take time to really analyze and even gain insight on. And today we have to interact and share more light on how the social media has transformed landscapes from business to economy to social issues to politics and even technology and even the media is one dynamic personality, Nkira Sika, CEO of Enterprise Creative. She was actually instrumental to the first ever hosted Social Media Week in Nigeria, February, in Lagos. It's great to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, CEO of Enterprise Creative. You can see the creativity down here and what you've been doing. But most remarkably, the social media, from what happened in the first ever hosted Social Media Week in Nigeria, Lagos, it was a wonderful opportunity for people to explore and see what the social media is, not just going on Facebook, not just going on Twitter, but how it moves from interactive to a veritable tool for business and for transformation. So could you share with us some insight into how social media has moved from that interactive platform to a veritable business tool?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think one thing that we have to note is that despite the phenomenal growth of social media, I think it took an event like Social Media Week Lagos to really show people what social media is about now. I mean, you were absolutely right in your introduction. You talked about social media cutting across all sectors, from politics to business to media to arts. And there had been a tendency, I believe, especially among corporates in this country, to see social media still as something, maybe as a bunch of kids swapping pictures on Facebook or tweeting nonsense and not really thinking about, you know, this is truly not just a cultural phenomenon, it is a social phenomenon, it is a business phenomenon. And when we hosted Social Media Week Lagos, there were over 100 events, and those events ranged from, you know, topics like, you know, social media and banking and how social media is helping banks promote their sustainable banking principles, to social media and its use in fashion, to social media and nation branding. I mean, it just cuts across everything. And we were really excited to see the level of engagement, to see the level of knowledge. I mean, there were so many different speakers at all these events, and, you know, people are doing so many diverse and interesting things. And it just showed how social media in such a short space of time has really transformed, you know, the way people interact, the way people do business, the way people build their businesses, the way people engage with, whether it's their customers or their fans, or, you know, so it's really been interesting.
Now let's look at the engagement level. The statistics, for example, from Facebook estimate shows that across the world, out of 7 billion, they have about a billion users.
Right.
And then Twitter has over 100, 200 million users. LinkedIn has over 100 million now too. So this shows that the engagement level is very, very enormous, and that talks about the impact that social media is having on this generation. Now, is it just the X generation, that those born between the 80s down, that are really engaging, or is it that it's also from the 50s, the baby boomers? Are we seeing just particular generation, or it cuts across all generations now?
It cuts across all generations. I mean, obviously, the core growth is coming from the, you know, millennials, as they're called, or the Gen Ys. Gen X's even now, I mean, I'm Gen X, I'm now old, you know. So obviously that is where the core growth is, because for the population, especially the millennials as they call them, it's technology is so intuitive for their generation compared to generations before. They just get things because they were born seeing so much evolve. And then in Nigeria, in fact across Africa, because we typically are a very young country, we are a nation of children, really. So obviously you're going to see more of the growth among the youth, but then the youth make up the most of the population, so it's not a marginalized sector in any way.
You're actually right, because when you look at our demography and the population, statistics, recent statistics says that we have 65 million youths. So imagine them being engaged on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It will be a massive one. Now, tell us about the concept of the social media, because like I said earlier, people use all the handles, but to bring coordinates a program where there's a nexus between the engines or the handles and then how it affects all sectors. Tell us how this concept emanated and players have.
Unfortunately, we cannot take credit for the concept of Social Media Week. Social Media Week is a global platform that was started in America, out of New York, to be precise. That's where the global team are located. And it holds in several cities simultaneously around the world. So at the same time as it was holding in Lagos, it was holding in cities like Copenhagen, Tokyo, 11 other cities around the world. So it's a really interesting, different type of event, and it's largely crowdsourced. So it's not you sitting down and planning, okay, where we want to do this event and then we'll get this speaker. It's we put it out there into social media, into the social media hemisphere, and say to people, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? Who do you want to connect with? And different people were just registering their own events. And then you also register whose event would you like to attend, who would you like to meet, etc. So the entire platform, depends on social media. That is the thinking behind it. To bring Social Media Week to Africa was basically the work of two organizations coming together. Dragon Africa, which is a communications consultancy based in Lagos, and Society HAE, which is a creative media organization, like a collective based in New York. And together they decided to approach Social Media Week Global to ask about doing Social Media Week in Africa, specifically Nigeria. And you can imagine the Social Media Week Global team, I think, were quite surprised. Unfortunately, because of the image that persists, in the Western world about Africa, when people think Africa, they're still thinking of, somebody, a bunch of people very hungry with flies in their faces. They're really not thinking social media. They're not thinking technology. And then even when they began to understand that, okay, there are people who are using social media, we're very, we have the highest mobile phone growth rate in the world, etc. They were still thinking that the topics would be, maybe it would be like how to get a farmer to do something. So they just really had a very limited idea of what people would actually be wanting to talk about and how people would actually engage with the platform. And we are just really, really proud that despite the initial sort of reservations, they were brave, because really they were brave to say, okay, yes, we'll give it to Africa, trusting that you're not going to spoil our name. And then even when people want to give something to Africa, they're more comfortable with like maybe Joburg or Cape Town. When people hear Lagos, they start becoming nervous. So we really commend them that they were willing to take that risk, and we were happy that we did not disappoint. In fact, when they did their global reports, Social Media Week Lagos literally just blew their minds. They could not believe the statistics. We had over 300 press mentions. We generated more than 31 million impressions. We received press as far as CNN, as Black Enterprise. All sorts of press all around the world. We had about 8,000 people register for, like I said, over 100 events over the week. I mean, they just simply could not believe, the impact that it had, and that's why they have invited Social Media Week Lagos to take part in Social Media Week London. And I don't think this has ever happened before, where they've invited another city to be part of another, because obviously because of the strong links between Lagos and London, there's so many. I mean, London is almost an outpost of Nigeria, an outpost of Lagos. So they've invited Social Media Week Lagos to participate in Social Media Week London, which is coming up September 23rd to 27th. And Social Media Week Lagos is going to host a day of panels called Africa Open and Connected on September 27th. And we'll be discussing, some of the things we raised in Social Media Week Lagos, how to engage across different platforms, across different sectors, all with the goal of, building a more open, a more connected, a more vibrant, a more commercial, a more creative, a more advanced Africa. And it will be holding at Ravensbourne University, which is a leading tertiary institution for creative and digital media in South London. And I think it's going to be a really exciting day.